Joining us now is a member of the MEK. They are engaged in a lot of the armed resistance inside of Iran and also the National Council of Resistance to Iran. Ali Safavi. Ali, thanks so much for joining us again. You are very well sourced inside Iran. Give us a picture of what the Iranian regime's repression currently looks like at this stage of the war.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Matt, for inviting me to the show again. Well, obviously, what we are seeing is a harrowing situation. The Iranian regime, as we've said many times, fears the Iranian people more than it fears a foreign war, more than it fears foreign armies. Since March 19, 32 dissidents have been executed, ranging in age from 18 to 67. 8 of them have been members of the Mujahideen Khalq, the MEK. 24 others have been people who were arrested during the protests. Among them was a 18-year-old wrestling champion, a 19-year-old boxing champion, a 21-year-old karate champion, educated people, professors, physicists, architects, electrical engineers, you name it. Basically, this regime is killing off the best and brightest of our people, obviously fearing what's coming inevitably, which is another major uprising, given that the very acute crises that led to the January 2026 uprising still remain, and the regime is unable and unwilling to address any of them, especially now that it has grown weaker with the elimination of Khamenei, the supreme leader, and of course the top brass of the IRGC. So
yeah,
the situation.
I want to get to the IRGC. Yeah, I want to get to the IRGC in a moment. But first, I think a lot of our viewers would wonder why there hasn't been a corresponding uprising to the renewed strikes by the United States and Israel. Is there a reason you could give our audience as to why we haven't seen tens of thousands of Iranians in the streets pursuing regime change?
That's an excellent question. I think the premise from the outset that if the United States and Israel were to bomb Iran, that tens of thousands of Iranians would come out onto the streets, I think was a fallacy. It was wrong to begin with. Change in Iran will not come from the air. It has to be homegrown, indigenous, and from bottom up. This is something that we have maintained from the onset of the war, not just this war, even the 12-day war back in 2025. Mm-hmm. If you recall, even then, during the 12 days of bombing, Iranians didn't show up in the streets. They opted to leave Tehran because people should not be expected to come out and risk their lives where bombs are falling. But as you know, a few months later, in January, there were tens of thousands of Iranians in all 31 provinces of Iran. And the same scenario is playing out right now. And it is precisely for this reason that we see every night, every day, the regime brings its thugs, its bureaucrats, the IRGC, dressed in civilian clothes onto the streets of Iran. They have these various ridiculous shows, singing and dancing and bringing in weaponry and teaching even children on TV how to use RPG, how to use anti-aircraft missiles. But obviously, you and I know that you cannot hit
the Iranian TV is a how-to for children on how to use RPGs and anti-aircraft missiles?
Absolutely.
We'll have to get some of that content.
Yes, in fact, they're even teaching the anchors how to use big machine guns, heavy caliber machine guns.
The television anchors?
Television anchors, yes.
All of ours already know that here at One America News. Ali, I wanted to also ask about the IRGC because they seem to be in firm control of the country right now. Do you think the MEK can assassinate enough IRGC generals to give the populace more confidence that organic, from the bottom-up regime change you talk about is possible?
But what I can say, Matt, is that from our point of view, the strategy to overthrow this regime involves 2 factors. You organize a structured, combat-ready, battle-tested resistance inside Iran in the form of the resistance units, which is basically like a liberation army within Iran. That needs to be fused with the public uprising with the Iranian people. I think these two together have the necessary force to topple this regime.
Okay, and how big does
will,
that force need to be? I think that's a very candid assessment of what it takes.
Yes.
How big does that force need to be to accompany an uprising?
It has to be sufficient. Just to give you an idea of
like how many men? Because the IRGC has like 600,000.
Yes, that is true. But remember that even the Shah's army, which was by some accounts perhaps the second strongest army in the world, in the Middle East, back in 79, could not withstand a largely unarmed, unstructured uprising back then. But this time, of course, learning from the experiences of those years, the opposition is organized. But just to give you an idea of the scale of the organized opposition, some 2,000 of them were either killed or went missing during the January 26 uprising. Regime just announced the arrest of 6,500 people after the uprising.
Yeah,
and it said 700
but Ali, some
of
might
them,
look at that as showcasing the limitations on what the MEK can reasonably do. Because you took such tremendous casualties, you failed to achieve the objective of the capture or assassination of the Ayatollah. And what I'm left wondering often is kind of what is it going to take? If I'm consistently told in the United States that some uprising is going to happen, I'm wondering what the catalyst is going to be. Do you see any on the horizon?
Well, I think that two things I must say. One, naturally, overthrowing a regime as entrenched as the regime in Iran takes effort, takes sacrifice, takes round-the-clock work. Just to give you an idea, 700 of the 6,500 who were arrested by the regime announced were from the MEK, which goes to show how extensive our network is within Iran. And in fact, as we speak, the resistance units are carrying out operations against the IRGC, against the Basij. But in terms
do
of
those operations include your group trying to assassinate Iranian generals?
Well, obviously, if there's a situation where during an operation, like an IRGC base is hit and there are military officers there, well, you know, they're going to be affected by that.
Yeah, affected is one way to put it.
But as I say, it's a fusion of the work of the resistance units and the IRGC. And I think the catalyst, to be honest, is the role of the international community. Just this June 20th, 100,000 Iranians are going to come to Paris, and they're going to make a statement. This is not just a rally. They're going to tell the world, look, the paradigm has to shift. These mullahs will not negotiate in good faith. They will not give up their nuclear weapons program. They will not give up their missile program. They're just stringing everybody along. I mean, it's been what, 40-some days?
We'll see what the limitations are of 120,000 people in Paris and changing a government in Tehran.
No,
but we thank you for joining us. We'll have to leave it there. Ali Safavi, member of the MEK and the National Council of Resistance of Iran. We always appreciate your perspective.
Of course. Thank you very much, Matt.